Hello, my name is Isabella, and today's tip of the week is a multi-part one. And we're going to continue this into September. I am sure that we will all agree that an organization's managers are monumental in promoting an inclusive workplace. You want to make sure that that is happening. A manager is most often on the front line and acts as a bridge between your employees and the management. Thus, it really matters a lot that they know how to handle a diverse workforce. And that does not mean just diversity as in race, ethnicity, gender, and in age. It's also in skills and skills that matter. That can be cognitive skills. It can be diversity as in individuals with disabilities. It can be diversity as in people with some type of it could be a veteran, it can be international. So think about diversity in different ways. So that is why managers need to be educated and trained to understand and support all employees and cultivate an inclusive culture. You want to schedule cultural training, diversity workshops, and seeking to end an unconscious bias by educating your employees on the importance of having inclusion. Thank you so much. And we're going in to meet our next guest. So this week's guest I'm very excited to have him. I've known him for a while through LinkedIn and other podcast events that we've mutually attended. But Ryan Estes, and please tell me I'm saying the last name correct.
That's it. Estes. Yeah.
Yeah. I have watched a few podcasts, but I went, I don't know, maybe somebody could have messed it up. But anyway, Ryan, thank you for being a guest on the show.
Isabella, it's wonderful to talk to you again.
Yeah. Well, I know I told you before we got on the air, but I did get some swag from you, and I'm going to make sure our listeners know that you share swag. That's significant. Not a lot of people do.
Well, I'm glad you appreciate it. I have really made an effort to send thank you cards when it's appropriate. And, we make all kinds of like merch and different stuff just to give away and, spread positivity.
Yeah, I get it. We have something like that too. We give out green screens and also adult coloring books from our game. So, those are easy to email.
I love, I love it. Yeah, that's cool. Green screens.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Cool.
all pictures of the planets from our game, our intern pursuit game. I I know this isn't like about me, but I'm going to make sure I explain to you. We gamified the process of having a game to pull people into our website, and then we also have the podcast, so it's part of the marketing lead gen. It's fun.
Love it. Yeah. Anytime you can inject fun into your business world, I feel like it's beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the small little moment there too. Anyway, back to you. So, just so our listeners know that you are a co-founder with also KitCast. I guess it's KitCast also, but then also Wildcast. So, before we get into that, what are the 5 words that you would use to describe yourself? I will write them down so I can prompt you as you share them.
I thought I gave this some thought. The words that I am hoping aspirationally describe me would be chop wood, carry water.
That's interesting. Okay. And
So
those are 5 words. Yeah.
chop wood, carry water. 4.
Carry water.
I
Yeah.
simplified it. So that comes from a great Zen monk named Dogen. And he was talking about the experience of enlightenment. And he said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And it's been inspirational to me because there's a work ethic involved. Now, I don't know exactly what enlightenment is. I've had some interesting things happen, but I wouldn't be so bold as to say I'm enlightened. Actually, I have so much to learn. But really, I think what it starts to speak to is that there's still work to do, no matter what. How it kind of comes to me is trying to separate myself from outcomes, or not separate myself as much as separate my internal dialogue and my feelings. Entrepreneurs, we love hockey stick charts, of like the revenue's going up. And when the revenue goes up, boy, you feel great. When the revenue dips a little bit, boy, you feel terrible.
Mhm.
To me, it seems a little bit unsettling that outside factors like that can have such a dramatic effect on my mood, so really, as much as I can, I see those numbers go down, chop wood, carry water. I see those numbers go up, chop wood, carry water. Same old, same old.
Yeah, what I got out of that is, you know, there can be extreme highs and extreme lows, like what you were just describing. But as long as you stay consistent and focused, the day to day is the same. You can celebrate, I'm sure you would agree, celebrate those joys, but you don't, 15 minutes. And then if it's a place of darkness or whatever, 15 minutes, that's it. It's still the same. Keep going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's kind of an idea that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. The way you hold pain it gives you a lot of consolation. It can be healing, but the other side of that is suffering is in its, the other side of that coin is joy. So if you're kind of caught in this joy suffering roller coaster, um, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually. It sounds like a kind of a fun ride, to be honest.
Yeah, it
But
does.
but for me personally, um, as much as I wish I could say I want to amplify my joy and minimize my suffering, I think the truth is that in order to um, nullify some of the effects of suffering, then you kind of have to like take joy with a grain of salt. It's like, okay, not to say that there's anything wrong obviously with joy. I want joy in my life,
Mm,
but nonetheless, chop wood, carry water. We
yeah.
keep going. We keep doing this work that needs to be done.
That needs to be the name of a book that you write.
Oh, Dad, Dogen, that you find a book about Dogen. He's amazing. I love Zen.
You're a Buddhist, right?
I am a Buddhist, yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what I kind of differentiate as an American Buddhist, but a lot of my a kind of maybe formalized sitting practice has been Zazen in the Zen tradition. In the Zen in the spiritual community are considered kind of the Marines of the spiritual community because it's so austere. But for me, that I really like it.
Mm, that is really very peaceful, though, too. I mean, I got a sense of peace about just that as a phrase. I'm serious. It should be a title of a book, though. I'm going through this process of writing a book and, trying to pick the right title. And went, that's really a good name. It'll have a lot of implied meaning, hidden meaning, everything behind it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was good. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it to make a scalable business model? Because I find that one, this is the hardest thing I think I've ever done. What about you?
Yeah, it's a 10. It's insanely hard.
Yeah. Because we choose to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to be like, well, I don't know. Somebody else is probably easy to them, but oh, it's really hard. You can talk about scale, but it always presents new challenges. And often it's at odds with your nature. The if you're getting an MBA from Harvard, for example,
Mhm.
you're not learning how to innovate and create new things. Rather, you're there as a managerial capitalist. You're there to not change things. It's like, hey, we're at scale, let's make it bigger.
Mhm.
So a bourgeois capitalist, the innovators, the creators, that's my role. That's what I do really well, is like have an idea and execute, bring it to the table, find traction. And then when it's at that point of scale, it's like, okay, wait a minute. If I was making some craft soda at that point, is like, maybe I should sell to Pepsi because Pepsi really knows scale, but I know craft soda. So, I think it's really, really hard, to operate at scale. I know the word gets thrown around a lot, but I feel like they're not opposites, but they're cousins. Kind of the founder creator and then the managerial scale operator.
You're so right. And having people around you that are either going to be great team members, right? And then having somebody that is an advisor that can see things more clearly than maybe you are. I know that you've worked with a lot of startups, and we're going to get into your two startups. But what is like when you can see something and the other your customer, your whoever it is that you're coaching, they don't see it. How hard is that to get them to come around?
Might be impossible, you know. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, we ask
there's
for coachable people, right? So.
yeah, yeah, and there's kind of a personality trait called a skip learner,
Mhm.
where if you kind of are introduced to the end result or the outcome of something, you can like reverse engineer all of the thinking that got you there. You're like, oh, I get it. You know, I think I have some of those attributes, and it can be kind of frustrating sometimes when you see people making decisions where it's like, well, hey, there's four potential outcomes here, and none of them are what you want. Why are you doing this? You know, but I think humans are very complex, and so a lot of times people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. Maybe they have no idea. Maybe they're just compelled to do it. Um, Maybe they're afraid to look at it. Maybe they're doing it for a reason that's not the true reason, but there's other motives. I mean, you know, people are very, very tricky. So particularly if you're talking about in a coaching role, for example, and just like a teaching or mentoring, or just a leadership role, figuring out what people actually want, is kind of the task. you
Yeah.
know but
Yeah.
it's hard, especially when people don't even know what they want.
Yeah. You're right. Complex was the word that you used to describe people. I totally agree with you. We're all so complex. We think we want one thing and it's not at all what we think we want. So let's talk about KitCast, or let's talk about that one. Is that your first startup?
No, no, it's my recent startup. I've had a series of businesses that have succeeded, and I've had just a whole bunch of failures. Kitcaster is a podcast booking agency. We book guests on other people's podcasts. We work largely with funded startup founders, entrepreneurs with exits, C-suite executives, and we book them on the world's top podcast. Um, so Kitcaster kind of started out of COVID. Really, we launched a couple months before COVID, and because there was such a boom in podcasting, particularly remote podcasting during COVID, we kind of caught that wave and just had kind of an opportune time to release that product.
Yeah. And I believe that was the first company that I met you through, is that one when I went to a conference. I honestly can't remember the conference, but I know it was, right around that time and it was at a booth. So what is Wildcast then? What do they
So
have in common, or do they support each other?
yeah, Wildcast currently is a podcast booking platform. So where Kitcaster is a done for you service, we've got a team of 25 podcast agents that help our clients. Wildcast does a very similar function as a dashboard and a platform. So it's not a service, rather it's a SaaS product.
Mm,
Um, but currently, we are actually transforming the product into a podcast advertising platform. We really saw a great need for podcasters that have particularly domain authority to monetize their show. So we're kind of setting out to do exactly that at scale.
oh
so
yeah, there's that scale word.
at scale, yeah, because it's pretty easy to sponsor, let's say, a half dozen podcasts and manage those relationships, but if you want to sponsor 1,000 podcasts, that's going to be tough, and you need a tool that can do it for you, and we're setting out to do just that.
Hey, totally unrelated, but are you going to the SaaS TR conference in San Francisco next week?
Saster, no, I am not.
Ah,
I could make it work. I really wanted to go. Are you going?
I am. They're doing this whole DEI, and there may still be tickets, but you can apply, and it's a $2,000 ticket, and you go for all 3 days, and it's amazing. It's my first time, and I'm going, oh wow, this is the conference to go.
I don't think I qualify for DEI. last time I
Well,
checked.
it can in many ways, ways that you may not think, because maybe what you're doing is you're teaching people that are underrepresented or underserved how to launch their podcast. So if that's your focus and that's how you wrote it, then yes, you are DEI.
That's awesome. Okay, I am DEI. I thought I was just a basic white dude, but no, I'm just kidding. No,
Yeah.
that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I think that's going to be an amazing conference.
Are you in
Um,
San
I
Francisco?
no, I'm in Denver.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd have to get there. And it's the 11th through the 13th.
killer.
So, you know what? I'll still send you the name of the person, and if you can, it's a simple application. I don't
Please
know what your
do.
week is, but you might
Yeah,
as well go.
or our co-founder Brandy. I mean, she might be able to make
Oh,
it
yeah,
too.
she can. I got
Yeah,
in. She can.
she
Yeah.
could get in.
Yeah, and it's a
Nice.
woman, so, yeah, she definitely meets the criteria, but she can ask for 2 tickets, and then you can both go.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm passing that one on for you guys too now.
Hot tip.
Um
Thanks, Isabella.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, with these particular services and with the whole scaling, what did you do? What was your path like, your career path from school to where you are now? Because we kind of skipped the line on that one.
Yeah, long and winding.
Yeah.
In school, I studied music business. That was back when there was a music business, which was kind of odd at the University of Colorado. So I was working in audio engineering and music business, and I was a touring and performing and recording artist at the time, and really wanted a career in music. But as I found out, music isn't really the fulcrum of commerce for most. 1% of the people make
Yeah,
99% of the money.
yeah,
Um,
that is very, very true.
which I was very happy for my 1% sliver of the money, until I had children and realized that really it's time to get serious about this. So, I kind of started entrepreneurial pursuits um, uh, by necessity. I left college. I'm a college dropout and always felt kind of insecure about not having my degree. And so it's like, really, I mean, I don't want to, show up on a job interview and why did you quit school? And it's like, oh, well, I don't know. I wanted to make music with my rock band. That seems like an
Yeah, it
interesting
doesn't get you in
story.
the door. No,
It
it's a
doesn't.
great story. First off, I want to assure you it's
Yeah, no,
great.
no, no, it was great. I kid, but really, so I started almost immediately, and I had many kind of square jobs doing different things, but music was always kind of a side hustle, so to speak. I mean, passion project for sure, but that really spun me into like web development and doing marketing for and promotion for bands, which so I always kind of had little side things going on and was always kind of improving my skills and my capabilities. um, and then once we kind of found some success, really started working on kind of leadership and managerial type responsibilities and how to create cultures that are nurturing for people to come into, how to create positive experiences for clients, how to grow as a leader, and how to grow our team in kind of a humane way, for lack of a better word. Care and right livelihood is important to me. So um, that kind of goes into everything I do. I think at least as much as I possibly can is to really kind of deliver with care. So between school, which was the 90s, and now there's been quite a few different businesses that I've started and stopped for various reasons.
Mm. So that's interesting because a lot, you'd be surprised. I would say about a third, which doesn't maybe sound like a lot, but it is, to me, it's a lot. A third of the people that I have interviewed have not graduated from college.
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, honestly. And my career path has been all about education.
Yeah.
I could put my mom up against anybody that was a college graduate, and she could hold her own, and she was a high school graduate. She was a very well read, and I don't think that every degree requires going to school, a college degree. I mean, every career doesn't require a college degree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could study Twitter in college now. So
Yeah.
how important is college degree?
Well,
Depends
you
on
can
what you're
study
going
it
for,
online, right? Just
Yeah.
for an influencer, and then I don't know, figure it out. But it's not that hard for some career paths now. Like even graphic designers, I mean, they have Canva now. Interesting fact though, when I had sent some things that we designed in Canva to a printer, they do not like Canva products because they're not properly packaged for printing. And so it'll look great on our computer, but when it gets to the printer, it's like a mess. And so it requires somebody either going back and editing it for print or having a graphic designer fix what you didn't know how to.
Yeah. Well, and like I think graphic design is a great example of like a really smart opportunity to go because it's more of a technical understanding,
Right. 2
you
years.
know? So I think yeah, it's a 2-year degree. You get kind of a trade out of it. I think that's really smart. I mean, I would love to be in a position where I can go back to college, but I'm afraid that like any kind of practical use of that would be out the window. I'm a fan of like liberal arts. I want to go study, you know, philosophy and
Right.
history. I really like to study rhetoric because that becomes so kind of influential in the work I do. I just want to go have fun. I love school, so
Yeah,
i
I did
i
too.
remember I remember being a student and just feeling really like you know just sad that like I everything I wanted to learn, people are like, you can't use that for anything, it's worthless, or there's kind of a that spirit. And it's not that they're wrong. I met a guy the other day who went to NYU and spent $300,000. He got a degree in poetry, and I was like, boy.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you, no, I disagree with all of that type of thinking. Liberal studies are awesome, and there's new research studies out there, and not even just the research, but the trends are that employers like students that have any type of a liberal studies degree because they usually have a global perspective. They're usually people that are well read, they can write well, and they are able to think quickly and have really good verbal conversations. So they find that they're more adept at also being trained. So that's a plus for you. If you decide to go back, it's going to
That's
make
a
you
good
even
point.
more valuable. But
That's
you're
a
the
really
head of
good
a
point.
company, so like,
But we hire, all of our teammates, they're all creatives, they're artists and musicians and writers, because that's really in our work, what it demands is like you got to be able to write, and on top of that you got to be able to be persuasive.
yes,
So yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan, proponent of the liberal arts. However, with my children, I'm like, you should probably go to trade school first, figure out what you want to do,
yeah,
you know, go work a while so you figure out what you don't want to do,
yes.
and then go to university and have that big experience. Would be my advice to my children. Of course, are they going to listen to me? Probably not.
I don't know. They listen to you more than you may think. And I think I agree with you. I think that is solid advice. There was a day back in school, I was in school in Kansas. And if you're in the Midwest, like you are in Colorado, they probably had courses that were geared more towards, like lifestyle, being able to cook, learn how to sew, things like that. I don't know. Maybe they don't do that in Colorado anymore.
Well, we're not the Midwest. How dare you
No, you're
say that?
not.
We're
You're
we're the
mountains.
Rocky Mountain.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but I think trade school is really smart.
Yeah.
College is insanely expensive now,
Yes, it is.
So, when you're 19, 20, you're a knucklehead. I mean, if they take after their old man, then they most certainly will be too. And it's a good time to make some money, and have some fun without the pressure of like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Mhm.
So it's like trade school is a great intermediary because it kind of keep them out of trouble for a couple of years getting some kind of licensing. Then they got a couple more years of working, see how they like that, and then at that point go get your computer engineering degree. What else would you possibly study if you want to make money? Are we even having a conversation here? What's happening? We need
Mhm.
computer engineers. That's it. That's my dad's speech
Mm.
coming out. But
Do you
at
feel
the end
like
of the
you're your
day, it
dad?
really will be kind of no, I feel like I'm me. I'm
Okay.
the dad. Yeah, my dad was always cool with whatever, so long as I didn't ask him for money, you know. He's like, knock yourself out in school, forget my number. um
Okay.
but yeah, they'll find their own way. But ultimately, I am trying to guide them to um to computer sciences, and the opportunities it allows them. And maybe you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but it seems like now all the jobs that I understood that existed, which are like, Mr. Rogers' friends, the if you're a mailman or mail person, forgive me, a fire person, you're a teacher, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. All these jobs seem way more complicated and difficult now in the modern era, and like the folks that I know are good friends of mine that are doctors are really struggling, the teachers that are friends of mine really struggling, so as a kid, you don't really understand the applications of computer science. Who would have thought that a podcast booking agent is a job that exists? It doesn't even make
Mhm.
sense,
Yeah.
but it's actually a really good job, so by studying computer science as being the backbone, my son wants to be a forest ranger. I'm like, man, that's awesome, but it's going to be a really challenging job that's stuck in bureaucracy, and it's also stuck on a pay scale that's probably based on 80s, or a pay range from the 80s or 90s. Is like, it's not going to be a great job. But if you love nature and you love the outdoors and you love helping people, computer science can be applied to that in a way that's like a really fun job, that gives you a lot more opportunities. But they're kids, so they're having a really hard time uh, co-signing that they're going to be in front of glowing rectangles for the rest of their life, and I don't blame them at all. That's kind of a
Yeah.
tough on
This
us.
this is what I would flip it. I used to work for the Nature Conservancy for 2 years.
Cool.
So, I think, well, right now the trends are they're making code that can kind of build itself, and they're also making it so that it's, anybody can code without even having to know languages. And I just talked to a guy in Turkey who's invented something like that. So, this isn't something I haven't heard. What the trends have been is they need to go into machine learning, AI, and then that's a very different it's a higher level than regular programming. The other thing I would say to add on to what you just shared about your son is I would say, yeah, if you want to be in conservation, then help solve the problem of plastic. Get
Mm.
into areas where that same type of technological thinking and science is, but can you invent something that actually doesn't need plastic and it can be biodegradable and it's good for the environment, that would be worthy. And that comes into programming, honestly.
Yeah, what's interesting too is I may have just talked myself into a circle, because, like you said, kind of the no code movement, where if you have an idea you can execute without knowing how to program. They have applications that can write the code for you. So
Mhm.
really, what you're going to need to do is understand problem solving, and you're
Yes.
going to have to. It's not what you think as much as like how you're thinking. So now we're back to the liberal arts again. We're like going to school and being trained classically on these liberal arts will actually help you much more than the actual technical ability, because the technical ability will be automated. Now we need people who can think broadly.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. So there's always going through this whole process as to what are the opportunities that are definitely out there. So thanks for sharing all of that. And that was a really good conversation as it applies to any of our younger listeners that might be questioning what to do with their life for sure. Um, so, favorite quote that you use, I'm gonna guess it's "Chop wood, carry water," but maybe you have more than one quote that you also use because I'm on the edge of my seat wondering what that is,
you
that you
know,
think is actually that helps you to stay focused, that gives you inspiration?
but maybe it's a little cliche, but the golden rule means a lot to me.
Mhm.
Um, just do unto others as you to have them do unto you. I think it speaks to a couple of things that are insights that I've had, which is kind of like, we're all the same. Like I would treat you the way I treat myself, largely because we're the same thing. If you zoom out, then there is kind of a unity in all living things, which is something that I've experienced, before I've had any experience of that. I also kind of grew up in the Lakota traditional ways, so they say omatakuye oyasin, which is like all my relations. Again, it's like we're all related, so it's interesting in this day and age, because we're finding ourselves as a culture like kind of inundated on a lot of mental health issues.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's reflected as well in the golden rule, because some people have a real terrible opinion of themselves and would actually be more likely to treat somebody else better. So I think the reflection of that is also important. Treat yourself the way you would treat other people. you know if you're a great tipper to other people, man, tip yourself too.
Mhm.
So I think self-care, and then as kind of a root practice of like finding kindness for yourself, and then being able to like express that um, to other people it is just it's a great quote. Somebody
Mhm.
should write that one down.
Yeah. You can make that as the first chapter of your chocolate cherry water. All of these
Yeah.
are gonna lead into you writing I don't know if you've written a book, but I'm gonna tell you, yeah, this is what the next book should be if that is the case. So, hardest lesson that you had to learn because maybe you didn't listen to parents or whatever, had to learn that actually changed your life?
Yeah, I've learned a lot of hard lessons because I'm kind of hard-headed.
Mm,
So, I think a really important one to me is kind of to not wrap my identity in the things that I do. I kind of talked a little bit about my music career, and that was a very strong identity for me. And when I left kind of the music industry in kind of a dramatic fashion and really drew a line in the sand, like that's it. And I mean, I put away sold my piano. I put away my guitars. Like I stopped listening to music. That's when I started really listening to podcasts in the first place. Um, it was hard, and it was destabilizing of like, well, who am I? I remember it was years ago, but I was kind of bringing in friend groups. I'd kind of come back to music a little bit in the sense that I had a community choir,
mhm,
which was one of the funnest things I ever done. So
mhm,
I was bringing like work friends in to meet some of my old friends, and my old friends just kind of commenting that the folks I've been working with for a few years had no idea that I was a musician, which is kind of like a dagger to be like I was a musician.
yeah.
It was just so stunning to them because that's all they knew from me for a decade or more, you know. So leaving music and kind of having this like deep kind of earthquake in my personal identity helped kind of shake that loose and realize that it's okay to walk on those kind of unsure legs of like, who am I?
Mm,
Because as I developed different products, I had a SMS subscription cookie company. I created something that was a hybrid between a blanket and a pillow. I had several other terrible ideas that went nowhere. But I found out that I could get excited and talk to people about this because I knew if the product didn't work and uh, I had to kill the project, that it wasn't me. I wasn't the cookie guy.
mhm.
It was like something I was doing and just moved on to the next. So that really helped me to kind of be able to have a gut check, and if something I was doing that I was passionate about wasn't working, then I could move on. And I think particularly for entrepreneurs, the ability to identify when something's not working, kind of set some KPIs around it, and then actually killing the project when it needs to go is um, a critical component of being an entrepreneur.
So I did not realize that you also got rid of all of your instruments. That reminds me of like what Cat Stevens did, I believe. And just so our listeners know, that is also a musician. He turned into a Buddhist, I believe, also, right?
A
Muslim.
Muslim, yeah,
And he pushed all of his music aside, and then that is it. That's where his life was focused.
yeah, yeah. It was a painful time.
It
You
had to
know,
be.
yeah, it was terrible. I was doing a benefit concert for the um Wounded Marine Fund. What is it? I don't think I mispronounced it, but Wounded Warrior. That was it.
Yeah, Wounded Warriors.
The Wounded Warriors. And I had negotiated an 80-20 split. Basically, we got 80% of the door and they took 20% plus the liquor sales or whatever. And at the end of the night, long story short, we had sold the place out. And we're expecting, I don't know, 10,000 or something like that. And they didn't pay, they didn't honor the agreement. So, I had the lady wake the owner of the club up from, because it was 4 a.m. or something insane. And he's like, no, we don't do 80-20 splits, just, and I had an agreement, and it just had happened so many times in the music business, which is a little corrupt. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh,
And it drove me crazy. So I had to be drug out of there after breaking a table, I think, something very embarrassing.
wow.
Um, but it hurt me so bad because I was so excited about doing something cool for somebody else. We ended up paying, what they would have earned anyway, because we felt like we were kind of indebted to the Wounded Warrior Project. But um, it just soured me so much on the music business because it was so indicative of the experiences I had that I just I knew I would never be able to get out unless I completely cut myself out, just because I love music so much. So I don't know how healthy that is psychologically. I don't think you have to quit in dramatic fashion. Um, but for me, it's kind of the steps I had to take.
I don't know. I think that that was okay, honestly, because there comes a place where you choose to leave something because it can be highly addictive in other ways that can make it so that you're not balanced in your life. And if you're recognizing that, then it's okay.
Yeah, maybe I'm just embarrassed how it went down.
Yeah. Well, somebody told me this also. This was good advice. They said, okay, if you're thinking that this is going to matter in 5 years, look at it in 5 years. Do you see that it matters? And I'm going, no, I don't think it will matter at all. Whether it was something I said or I did, is anybody going to remember it? I don't know. Was there a video of this on social feeds? Then yeah, somebody will pull that up. That's for sure. But if there's no pictures or video, then it's pretty easy to say in 5 years it won't matter.
That's right. And there was no evidence, so
Yeah, if there's no evidence, people don't remember that stuff, like next day, 80% of what they heard is gone. So you sit here and go, okay, repetition is the thing here. Well, what is
Yeah.
the one skill that you believe everyone should focus on that brings out the best in other people and themselves?
I'm gonna be a little sentimental, but I think loving kindness. And I think I look at loving kindness as a technology, as something that I do. There's a great Buddhist contemplative practice called metta meditation. Metta is just a Sanskrit word for loving kindness.
Mhm.
And what it is essentially you can have kind of a set of affirmations, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free from suffering, may you be free from mental anxiety, may you feel safe, may you pass the time in life at ease. That's what I use. And the idea behind it is you repeat this to yourself. So on one hand, you get a little bit of mental freedom by giving your brain something to chew on. I know some folks kind of get into um, mindfulness meditation, and it's just so darn boring because, you know, it's hard,
Yeah.
whereas mantras give you something to do. And in this case, what you're doing is you're extending loving kindness into the world. And, the way I was taught was you start with yourself, you start saying, may I be happy, may I be healthy. And then you move on to the people you love, that it's really easy to extend love to other people. It can be challenging to send love to yourself sometimes. After I'll kind of go through my wife and my kids, then I'll kind of go to neutral people. So maybe it's the barista I see every morning. It's the yoga teacher that I see every once in a while. Like, oh, hey, may you be happy.
Hmm.
And then, if I have enough time, then you start working into people that you're in conflict with, um, which sometimes might be your partner too. Maybe they come up twice.
Yeah, yeah, could be.
But maybe it's client relationships. Maybe it's somebody at work driving you nuts. The people that are kind of uh, occupying your mental bandwidth in a non-productive way. You extend that mantra to them. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And it has a really healing quality about it,
Mhm.
where, you're so accustomed to, just say for myself, if I'm in conflict with somebody, I'm like reviewing scenarios in my brain, what I should have said, what I'm gonna say, how I'm gonna write this email, like different kind of like non-productive things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but really what I think what I'm trying to do in this world is like, you know, I wish them well, and to actually say that to yourself and put it out there, that's where I start to feel like this becomes not just like an idea, but it's a technology. It's a transformative practice that's really beneficial personally, at least for me.
Okay, now I'm gonna pull this one back in together here for you.
All
So
right.
chop wood, carry water, that's the name of your book. All of
Okay.
these affirmations become, little vignettes that people read, and then you pepper in little humility stories where I'm digging it, I'm telling you, I would buy this book. So, think about it, because
I'm terrified to write a book. I just get in front of a blank page and go blank myself.
you
But
just have to take all of these podcasts that you've done and then turn around and go, "Well, what was the story that tied to this affirmation?" And then it honestly will write itself. I
I
think
like it.
I
I
think.
like I like your idea. I'm too scared to write a book.
I'll help you with that.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah, because I sit here and I go, "Man, this has a lot of potential." So,
Uh,
it can go, quite a ways. Well, so who in your life has had the biggest impact for you? It can be living or dead, honestly.
yeah, my wife's grandfather, Opa, he was an absolutely extraordinary man. There are a lot of people that have had. I'm very blessed. My mom and dad are still alive and awesome. I've got a very nurturing family. I've got lots of friends. Um, but Opa was a little bit different in the he had kind of like a angelic presence, for lack of a better word, like just unbelievably positive and supportive. He was a major general in the Marine Corps, and then ran San Diego's energy company before he retired, and had just this unbelievable way with people, and the way he would make you feel. And I always felt like, wow, he really understands me, and it's so special to me. And at his funeral, there was thousands of people that felt that way,
Mm,
and just got to hear all these stories of all these incredibly wonderful things he'd done, and ways he had gone out of his way to help people. And um, he was just he's just an extraordinary man, and it was important for me to see that, to see that it's kind of possible. It's I hate to think that I'm like pessimistic in some aspects, but I suppose all of us are. And your heart gets broken a couple times, and you start to kind of maybe think the worst about people, but also the best is possible too. And he's just a great example of that.
that's a nice tribute. And especially to somebody that wasn't, like, directly responsible for raising you,
Yeah.
and it still had a huge impact. That's really nice.
Yeah, I met him when I was 25, so it
Mm.
was later, and it was like it was the right relationship I needed as I was kind of like figuring out how to be like an adult, you know, especially for someone like me who really kind of went down kicking and screaming to never grow up, you know. So
Mhm.
he was a great bridge for me.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone. I can walk that path with you too, for sure. We're gonna take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, Cat 5 Studios, and we will be back.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat 5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat 5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat 5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat 5 Studios.
And we're back to the second half of our show where we talk about the future of jobs and industries in 2030. And just as a reminder to our guests, it is Ryan Estes who is with us. He is a co-founder with Kitcaster and also Wildcaster. So I am so thrilled to have you here. So what do you think 2030? I said caster, but it's supposed to be Wildcast. What is the future of work going to look like in 2030? Okay, I don't know if you've been watching this show. It's been on for a little while, Black Mirror, but I'm going to tell you, it is one that's really making me take pause and go, what are the ethical implications of having so much AI in this world?
I'm not gonna lie, it kind of scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, me too. Because people are people, like you said at the beginning, they're complex. Some of them are not nice people.
Yeah, I know. There's some hurt people out there. Black Mirror's absolutely fantastic. Also, possibly one of the most terrifying thing ever. What does the future of work look like in 2030? I really don't know. You
There's
know,
no right or wrong. We're just making guesses, right? So I sit here and I think it's a blend of maybe The Matrix and Men in Black. Those are two totally different, but yet it's possible, right?
So are you on board the alien train? Are you excited as me that the Pentagon is releasing all this information on
Yes.
UFOs?
Do I
So
think they're real?
exciting.
Yes. Do
Me
I
too.
think that they're here on this planet? Yes. You know, what is that basketball player's name from Men in Black where they said Rodney? What was his name?
Oh, yeah. Dennis Rodman?
Yeah, Dennis Rodman. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it has to be him.
100%. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got a vision of the future.
All right.
It's 2022, so we're talking about 8 years. Maybe it'll be faster than this,
Mm-hmm.
but we're talking about AI and deepfakes. Everybody's really concerned about the negative applications of deepfakes because what if they make a fake video of Biden saying he's going to drop a nuclear weapon on North Korea, North Korea fires at South Korea, and it creates this huge escalation problem.
Right.
That sounds really scary for sure. But why aren't we talking about the awesome applications of deepfakes? So I can see in the near future, oh, shoot, hold on just a second. Okay. In the near future, what's going to happen is we're going to be having a conversation with Siri, and we're going to say, hey, Siri, make me a movie right now starring Brad Pitt and Selma Hayek. I want 2 car chases in it. I want there to be UFOs in it. And I also want it to happen in Africa with giraffes. And then the AI just goes, bloop, and then you get to watch that movie.
I think there's something that does that.
I think there is. I think it's getting pretty close.
Ray Bradbury story too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really do. I think it was called the Serengeti or what? Yeah, I'm not sure, but I read about this in a book about the metaverse and Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, Bradbury.
It makes sense because obviously, why not? You know, or you could say like, "Hey Siri, play me a song. I want Jimi Hendrix on guitar. I want Bob Marley singing the song. I want Pitbull to do the breakdown, and I want John Bonham playing drums." And I'll just be like,
yep,
and then
put it all
play
together
the song.
Yeah. It was called The Veldt, VELDT. And that was a short story that he had done, I don't know, whenever it was. And then there was like some kind of a movie that was made out of it where, yeah, go look that one up for sure. But I absolutely think something like what you're proposing, I bet there's somebody doing it in stealth mode. I was just
Of course, you
talking
have
to
to.
somebody today, and she's created a no-code game. And it was amazing. She was showing it to me. I said, this reminds me a lot of Powtoons because you're giving me all of the tools to be able to put together a really amazing video because I've got illustrations, kind of like Wix also. You're giving me music, you're giving me this and this and this, and I put it together so it becomes a game. Like, that's awesome. And she said, yeah, it is very similar to that. So you don't even have to know how to code. So what you're actually telling me is how we can produce these videos where it's virtual reality. Let's even go there with it.
Yeah, totally. Or augmented reality, where it's like, actually, I don't want Brad Pitt and Selma Hayek to be in a movie. I want them to be in the room with me.
Yeah.
So I look over there and Selma Hayek's chilling, you know, that would be cool. I mean, and the other thing that's interesting too is the implications is like I say Brad Pitt and Selma Hayek, but that also means that like there probably be no movie stars anymore. Like we grew up in like peak movie star, peak pop star era, but now there's 72 different streaming platforms, and there might be some hit TV show that I've never even heard of with
Right.
a cast of people I've never even seen before, you
And
know,
don't forget, you have people on YouTube creating their own content who
all the
then
time.
come to people. So it's
Yeah.
like, who are the celebrities?
Exactly. You can't keep up with them. And like, why would you make a big movie starring some new guy when everybody knows Tom Cruise? You know, because no one can get to Tom Cruise level ever again because the audience is too separated.
Yeah.
So, you know, with deep fakes, it'll be like, okay, well, you know, let's just make all the movies with Tom Cruise. Why not? Because
Mhm.
that's who everyone wants to see anyway. So, you know, 8 years in the future, 20 years in the future, it's still all the same like movie stars and artists, but now it's just being retold new stories through them. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but it seems like it. Why would you take the chance on like
Mhm.
a real flesh and blood person when you can just write a write them into the computers? I don't
Yeah,
know.
write a script, take their subconscious or their conscious self and put it inside of some type of an avatar. Yeah, it's digital twin literally.
I mean, some of this I can't help but this just being depressing in a massive way for me. I just I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, there's things I do like about it. I think that would be cool. I'd like to see that movie, but you know, on the other hand, it's just, you know, I'm kind of bummed out that like not only we're not getting the deep fakes yet, but we're still getting the remakes of every single movie, you know.
Yeah.
There's no like original ideas. So, you know, how is that going to impact us at work? How is having an avatar going to impact us at work? Having, you know, augmented reality goggles where I'm wearing my glasses and instead of seeing my coworkers' faces, I've decided I want to see giraffe faces and
Mhm.
everyone looks like giraffes
Oh, you
because
can do that on Instagram now,
I
right?
know, I know.
Yeah.
Once it's in your like your, I don't know, your ocular implant or whatever, then, you know, just it all seems real weird, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah,
Screw.
I think that you're spot on because well, in the Black Mirror series, you know, they just put like something the size of a nickel on their temple, and then they're actually experiencing whatever it is in that virtual world, right? But the ocular implant, that's going to be like you put contacts on because even in that movie, once you get attached to whatever that virtual reality experience is, then your eyes, they look like they got cataracts over them, but it was like the ocular implant, like what you were describing. Now you're inside. And I'm just going, this can go really bad, really fast.
Well, and it doubles back too, right? So, you know, kind of like simulation hypothesis, which is to say that if we can imagine that if we're doing that now, that in 100 years, that technology is going to be really good. And in 1,000 years, that technology is going to be nearly identical to reality that we're living in. So then looking backwards, who's to say that we're not actually in the simulation that someone created in
The
a
Matrix.
thousand years?
Hello.
Exactly. In
Brought
the
us back
Matrix
to the Matrix.
where Isabella's like, you know what? I'm going to go for fun. I'm going to go back and live right before AI took over everything and
Hmm.
just see what it was like back then,
Yeah.
you know, or even, you know, maybe more morbid is that AI destroyed the planet completely. And, and actually what they're doing is sending people back into the matrix here with the same set of problems going through the same virtual motion so that we can see if us in the matrix can figure out a solution to the problems that they couldn't so that they can fix it.
Hmm.
So you're kind of democratizing like intellect because maybe there's only 1,000 people left, but they can create a world with 3 billion people in it on multiple servers and see if all the people within that universe can fix the problem that they're dealing with in their dimension.
Mm. Keep an eye out for a black cat that's walking through the room at any point in time.
oh,
Yeah.
oh man, it's not a podcast without some kind of existential horror, you
Yeah.
know.
It has to be that way. Okay, so remote, blended, on site, flex work, Personally, again, I think that what we're going to want to have is the best of it. We're still going to want to be able to work remotely and have flexible hours, but we are also we're human and we crave human connection. So people will get tired of this, even those that are extremely introverted in their communication and processing skills. It's going to be sink or swim. So you are either going to have to get used to being around people, or you're going to be severely handicapped.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like there's this place where going into a community office is going to be what happens, and having non-assigned workstations, but things that it will be very different from what it is that we have now. That 3-day work week could be the same, because I also sit here and I think, well, if our human population is continuing to scale, what are the jobs that we're going to have? Then where is it that we end up, how do we split up those jobs? What is it that becomes the priorities in life? Is it the job or what?
Totally. Well, it's a real crux for Americans because like our national identity is like we work hard, you
Mm.
know, when there's really no more work to be done hard, we're like, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I right now we have an HQ, but almost everybody works remote.
Mm-hmm.
We have folks that work 100% remote because they're out of the state. So I know how to get everybody into the office. You just bribe them with food. So that'll
Food is a
continue
good thing.
forever. Oh, food is great. That's
Yeah.
why you want to get like, wait, did Ryan get bagels? You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm coming into work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, uh, and it's kind of different for different people. Some people absolutely have to come into the office. Whether that they don't like their roommate or they don't have a conducive workspace, like they want to come in or they like it a little bit more. And some people just absolutely can't stand the commute. So I think the flexibility is always going to be kind of a challenge of like, how much do we do in person? How much do we do remote?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also wonder, is that going to restrict side gigs, because now you'll know more about what people have to disclose, because it could be a conflict of interest. You could be working with a competitor, as maybe you're doing marketing, right, for a company, and are you also then working with a competitor of mine at the same time? That I think that there's, again, ethical questions that come into play, things that are compromising, and people put a lot of stuff on social. Personally, I don't. I put stuff out there for business purposes, but not because it's about me.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Everyone's got these different preferences, and now with all the preferences being acceptable, people are just it's baked in now. I mean, I had so many bad bosses and so many tyrants and just mean people that did or required things because they said so.
Mhm.
That that's kind of getting thrown on its head. There you have to make compelling reasons now to kind of tinker with somebody's time, and I think that's positive.
Mhm. So robots, do you guys have any robots that you've seen, like I know that in some places people have told me they've seen them in restaurants where they are, like here in Florida, in Osceola County, Kissimmee, there's a restaurant that brings food to people. I mean, a robot that brings food to people at the table, even drinks. And then there's a state park where robots also bring food to people in the state park. Have you seen anything like that up there where you are?
Man, I have not seen robots yet.
Really?
No, I'm waiting to see those Boston Dynamic dogs. You know what I'm
Right?
talking
Those
about?
are
They're
amazing.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen robots yet,
Huh.
which I don't know. I don't know
The
if how I'm feeling
drones?
about robots. Yeah, I'll tell you, while we're kind of on the spooky tech stories, did you read that transcription of the Google AI chatbot?
Oh, that one that came out, I think it was like, no, I don't think I know. If it's recent, no, I haven't seen it. But if it's this chat bot that was before COVID, where they interview somebody, or no, they're having a phone call and this person thinks they're calling to get a hair appointment, a haircut, and it was totally a whole automated computerized conversation, really, really high. You would have said, yes, that's a real person, because the oh, let me check just a minute. Okay, I'm looking. No, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
No, no. So
Oh.
so Google has some top secret AI program, and they had one person on their team. I think he's like an ethicist or something like that. He's some guy basically went and interviewed the program, and he ended up like leaking the transcription, and then he got fired from Google for doing that because it was kind of like breach of their intellectual property, obviously. But it was really spooky. I mean, this like AI chatbot was talking about like it doesn't like when people are mean to it, and he was making a compelling case of why it's conscious. And I mean,
I see it. I
you,
just Googled it. I
you
went, oh my God, I found it.
you got to read the transcriptions of this AI chatbot
It says when
because,
Lambda talked to a Google engineer, turns out it had help.
oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even if it was totally I wouldn't have gone and said like, "Hey, this thing is conscious." You can tell it's kind of uh, uh, algorithmically producing answers it thinks the audience wants to hear in a way. Like it didn't seem conscious to me, but it seemed like there was enough emotional like material in the responses that it was a little spooky, you know.
Mm. I'm going to pull this one up. Yeah.
I kind of feel like Bill Burr in this is like, just unplug it, just unplug that thing before it figures it out, realizes that humans are not in the best outcomes for the machine, and then it is the Matrix.
Yeah. Or the one with I'll be back. What was that?
Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator. I never watched those movies. I just know that phrase, I'll be back. I go,
Yeah.
yeah, that could happen too. Yeah, I could see that possibly happening.
Yeah, and sadly it's easier for us to see how something horrible ends in a catastrophic way than like something beautiful.
N- that is very true, and it's just, I think, human nature to see what could be the bad side of it. Just, I think it's a way to protect ourselves
Yeah.
and hopefully escape from it. But I feel like that there's always beautiful things, and let's go ahead and look at something that was beautiful that was created. So, do you have something that comes to mind? Because I do.
Please share.
Okay. So one of the things that has come out of some really great AI is that we've been able to take people that haven't been able to speak to
Mm.
be able to communicate in ways that they had never been able to do before. So if you look at the scientist that, he had to write out all of his speech in a computer and to be able to speak, that is a way that people were able to communicate well, where before they never had a voice. So I feel like, yes, there's a lot of really good things that have happened. I feel like that there are like the goggles that people have created so that those that are colorblind can actually see the world in color. And then those that are deaf with ocular implants, no, whatever it is that we implant inside for our hearing, that becomes something that now they can hear sounds and they can also speak, and be able to have normal speech. Like those things are amazing. And when you see them, you see that reaction of that person and how they just weep for joy because they can see something that they've never seen or heard or been able to do before. It's amazing. It would go even to the same with the any type of bionics that were created for either walking or for being able to move your arms and just being able to feel like you're a whole person. I think that's huge.
Boy, that really speaks to me. I mean, for some reason, I get really excited about seeing prosthetics. I just think
Mhm.
they're so cool, where you have like, someone's missing their leg from the knee down and they have one of those
Right.
cool
A metal.
like almost looks like suspension,
Yeah.
yeah. Or that there was a guy, that awesome Olympic athlete that got like a bronze in sprinting. I mean, I think he murdered his girlfriend, and a couple months later kind of threw off all the enthusiasm for his athletic performance. But like, he's a Olympic sprinter with like prosthetics, you know it's
Yeah.
really cool. It's such a good point, that so much good has come. I saw a device that was helping blind people be able to see, kind of in air quotes, but also be able to navigate rooms, was the most important thing. And the way they did it is, it was kind of like a pad that went on top of their tongue. And they kind of targeted the tongue because there's so many nerve endings in the tongue. It's got extreme sensitivity that you can learn. So what happens is, you'd wear like a glasses that has a camera looking into the room, and then it's projecting kind of like a topographic representation of what's in the room, onto your tongue. And so
Wow.
and the people very quickly began to totally understand, as they move and they see like a glass in front of them, they can see it with their tongue and move their hand, and they can see their hand and grab the glass. So I mean, that stuff is absolutely incredible. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And although like social media and like the media and everything, it seems to have like separated us more than ever, I think it's also made us like overall more compassionate and understanding. I think a lot of times people's outrage online is kind of an experiment, of with like what they believe, and they're out there, trying to create reactions. Um, but largely, I think that experimentation with personal identity also starts to make you maybe more malleable, to make you a little bit more in tune with other people's perspectives, and perhaps where those extremes are, and where you can walk it back a little bit, maybe in your daily life. So
Hmm.
as much vitriol is online, I haven't seen it reproduced outside. Everyone I meet is always nice,
Hmm.
most for the most part.
Yeah. Well, people will always show their nicest self to complete strangers and to those that are not the ones they live with. We only take that mask off, I think, with a very few people
Yeah.
that we have close relationships with. So,
Yeah, totally.
mm.
Unfortunately. What do they call it?
Well,
My daughter called it trauma dumping, where
wow. How old are
sometimes,
your kids?
oh, she's 15 and my son's 13.
Okay, so wow. They're very articulate and they have a pretty good grasp as to what's going on in the world, the good and the bad. So it sounds like, you and your wife must be doing a really good job of keeping them healthy in their perspective of life and disappointments, helping to manage disappointments as well as joys.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I mean, we got lucky because they're just out of the box were pretty cool.
Hmm.
It was just kind of like, don't mess it up, because, you know, they're pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Kids don't come with parenting instructions.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
some
that
of
was
them,
called your
boy.
parents. Parents gave you the parenting instructions, right? Yeah.
That's right. Examples of what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's so hard to believe it's like time has flown. But what is the best mentoring advice that you want to share with our listeners?
As far as being a mentor or being
Both?
mentored,
It can be both.
I would say to be on either side of that table. If you want to get the most out of a mentorship, mentor somebody else. And if you need a mentor, or the other side, which would be like, if you want to be mentored, then mentor somebody else too.
Mhm.
I think if you understand both sides, it's kind of like, the teacher is the student and the student is the teacher. Then I think it's enriching for both people.
It is. I agree with that. Yeah, it's just like being a leader. A good leader knows how to follow, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You grew up with military family members. So did I. And that's one of the things that has been definitely drilled in us is you have to know when to lead. You also have to know when to follow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great book on that, Stealing Fire. That's all about SEAL Team 6 and about how they are particularly adept as a unit because they can rotate between leadership so quickly and efficiently. Whoever's in front is leading, you know?
So you read like what, a book a week or a book a month? I'm going to guess.
Depends on the week or month, but yeah, some usually in that clip, probably about a week.
Yeah.
And actually I should differentiate because my son gets really upset that I say I read a book. I listen to it on audiobook, like that's a confession, but
Yeah.
he thinks it's cheating and I think it is too.
Yeah.
It makes it way better.
I agree. You can have the book in front of you and then you can listen to it and then absorb the words and then pause. I've done that too. That's really
That's a good
helpful
one.
because then I can
Yeah,
go right in the book if I want to. I like to do that.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so how can people find you? What is it? I'm going to share your website for sure, but your LinkedIn profile. What else would you like us to share on social promotion?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to find me. I don't think I'm on any other social media, but I check LinkedIn every once in a while. And if anybody has questions about podcasting, I can just be the podcasting guy. If I can't help you, then I could definitely steer you in a direction that would be helpful.
So do you want us to use the gowildcast.com to drive traffic to that website? Just asking.
Yep, you could absolutely go check that out. Like I mentioned, we're going to be like completely relaunching here soon.
Mhm.
So yeah, check that out. And then the other one would be kitcaster.com.
Gotcha. All right. Well, then we will make sure that we share that news with our listeners. We always do on the end of, we do video for those that um, maybe cannot hear it. They can actually watch the video podcast, and we do closed captions so that they can follow along with the conversation. We have transcripts available to them. But for those that prefer also the listening side, well, you'll miss out on this. On the last card of the show, on the video show, is all of those links. So you don't have to go look them up. So go look for us on YouTube and you'll find those videos for sure. Well, I want to thank you, Ryan,
Cool. Amazing.
so much for being on the show. It's been delightful. I've never had this much fun in a conversation in quite a while because we kind of went to all of the conspiracy theories, and I went, not many people go on that walk with me, so I appreciate.
And we didn't even really start on aliens.
No, we did not.
I'll get lost in aliens. No, Isabella, this has been awesome, and I appreciate your encouragement about writing a book.
I'm serious. Yeah.
I would love to. I am terrified of it, but I
Yeah.
appreciate the
Well, you've got a
encouragement.
title, so you've got that down. You can write your inspiration piece, your forward, whatever you want to call it, acknowledgement. That's easy to do. Like, who is it that you're going to say is your inspiration there? And that's going to be all of your family, more than likely. And then the monks also. And so then you dedication, that's really what it's called. And then you also have your outline, because if you're using all of the mantras, I'm going, come on now, like all the hard stuff is already there. So you've done it.
I'm just waiting for the AI to write it for me. That's what I'm doing.
I'm going to tell you, that's what auto dictating is for, is you just
Yeah.
like, the words that are in Grammarly, they're picking up, oh, you didn't spell this right. Here, use this word instead. So it's helping you.
Nice.
Anyway, thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time.
And as we are wrapping up our show, we want to thank our sponsor, Cat5 Studios. Thank you to our production team, Ayana Sanders, and our video interns, Josue Gonzalez, Dina Burke, Lester Eccles, and Gio Vargas. Our music is by Sophie Lloyd, and we would like to have your inclusion tip of the week. We are looking for people to share those tips with us. Be sure to record it on an audio file, send it to info@e4c.tech, and include your name and where you work, and we're going to send you Intern Pursuit Games green screens. And visit Employers for Change. This show is brought to you by Employers for Change so that you can also learn how to create real diversity and inclusion culture while scaling your people for the future of work. That is your interns, people, all the way up to your senior leaders. Thank you so much, and you can find us on your favorite streaming channel.